This is TWiT.
This episode of Tech Break brought to you by ACI Learning. 87% of companies have skill gaps. Secure your business with ACI Learning's Insights, the new skills gap analysis tool that revolutionizes how businesses train and engage employees. Try it for yourself, then bring your team along. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit for a free 2-week trial. The Spanish Antitrust Watchdog has taken a little bite out of Amazon and Apple to the tune...
No one expects the Spanish Antitrust Watchdog.
Oh, I'm so glad I gave you that opening. Apple was fined 143 million euros, Amazon 50 million euros. Because, and you know, this is something I guess it's unique to Europe. The two companies signed an agreement in 2018 giving Amazon the status of authorized Apple dealer, and it included some clauses that, according to Spain, affected the online market for electronic devices in Spain. Probably some exclusives, that kind of thing. And
basically, this isn't the first time that Apple's faced this in court. Not even the first time in the EU. Italy also instituted a fine against Apple and Amazon for a little bit less than that a couple of years ago. However, interestingly, of course, both companies fought it, and first it was reduced, and then it was passed. It was basically wiped off. But there is still a similar lawsuit happening in Washington State as a class action that I think was last month. It was filed in October or September or something like that. Again, making the claim that Apple and Amazon basically colluded to keep Apple prices on Amazon at an artificially inflated level. I think they're saying that, hey, the prices of Apple stuff went up 10% immediately across the board on Amazon after this happened. The latest action, nothing's happened with it since last month, when basically a judge basically said that, hey, Apple and Amazon both wanted to have this case thrown out. The judge said, nope, this case is going forward. So now you get into depositions, you get into disclosure and research. But this isn't new. They're probably going to get it elsewhere too.
The Spanish Antitrust Watchdog said that this agreement eliminated sellers using Amazon's marketplace to sell Apple devices. 90% of the existing retailers were blocked as a result. Honestly, from a consumer point of view, that's a good thing. I want to buy it from Apple, and I want to kind of know it's an Apple authorized reseller. So
they were having a lot of problems, and they made this deal. But it is, I mean, on another level, it is anti-competitive in the sense that it's crowding the third-party sellers off of Amazon. And basically, Amazon and Apple made this handshake deal where Amazon gets preferred, but the stuff gets cleared off the store that isn't from the preferred plan. And as a consumer, I think we even said this on an episode recently. I am more likely to buy a Mac or any other Apple hardware from Amazon now because there was a period where it felt super sketchy.
Now you're getting it from an authorized Apple reseller.
But I can see the argument that was also two big companies sort of colluding to push other sellers off the store. I can see that part too, but I do think that it's probably improved the lot of most buyers because they can buy from Amazon with more confidence than there was a dark period where you kind of couldn't do that.
Apple said the agreement was designed to limit the number of counterfeits sold online. You may remember back in October, a similar case in Italy was brought, and with a proposed 200 million euro fine, it was eventually dropped. So Apple, of course, and Amazon will appeal this, and who knows what the outcome will be. It's a big fine, $218 million in total. Yeah. But
they'll flick that off the outside. It's like how much they made yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like when you hear about the nephew of an ambassador in New York who just simply or nephew of a billionaire who just parks wherever they want in New York and just tears up the parking tickets because not only the $100 parking ticket means nothing to them, but like the $800 in fines for not paying it doesn't matter to them. So I don't know whether this is right or wrong. But as usual, I'm glad that at least they have to defend their actions in court, because that means that if they're going to be dissuaded from doing sketchy things just in general, if they said, well, we're going to have to talk to a judge and say this was okay, how did we actually structure this deal so that it doesn't do the things that these people are claiming that it does?
Yeah. The Supreme Court is also in the news. Speaking of court actions, Apple. Reuters says Apple has been chided.
Chided.
It's not as bad as
at least they weren't scolded.
Apple chided by appeals judge as it heads to U.S. Supreme Court in antitrust case, says Reuters. This was yesterday. A U.S. appeals court judge criticized Apple over legal arguments it made as it prepares to ask the U.S. Supreme Court to strike down the ruling that would require Apple to change how the App Store payment practice works. Judge Milan Smith of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco said Apple had made statements in its bid for time to appeal to the Supreme Court that, quote, may not be technically frivolous, but that ignore the factual record and the rulings in the case. Smith and two other judges on the panel did give Apple 90 days to file a petition, pause the ruling on payments through apps. Apple plans to go all the way to the Supreme Court. The Ninth Circuit upheld a judgment that said Apple cannot ban links within apps that direct consumers to payment options outside of the App Store. So you know this because if you have the Kindle app, for instance, or the Audible app, there's no link to push you to the Audible store on the web or the Amazon Kindle book store on the web, because Apple forbids that. And why would companies do that? The 30% sales commission. If you buy the book on the web, they don't have to give Apple a third. Fortnite maker Epic Games sued, of course, over this. And this is the one area where Epic won. So Apple doesn't like the Ninth Circuit's ruling, but the Ninth Circuit did give them 90 days to prepare an appeal before they are forced to actually do this. Anything to say about that? I know how you feel, Alex Lindsay.
I think it's
you're chiding Apple as well, are you?
I know. I'm just saying that it's. I think
you're chiding Epic.
Going through the courts.
Yeah.
If it going through the courts is the direction. I'm much more comfortable with it going through the courts than having Congress trying to write some law that will most likely miss the target and cause lots of collateral damage. So having it work its way through the court, I think is fine.
The Ninth Circuit really did like Epic's points and not Apple's. The judge wrote, Apple's argument overlooks aspects of the panel's opinions analysis that are inconvenient to its position. Smith said the Epic's role as a games distributor justified a broad-reaching injunction. Smith said competition law injunctions often have incidental benefits to non-parties. That's because antitrust law protects competition, not individual market participants. So Apple seemed to make arguments that, quote, challenge an imagined panel opinion on an imagined record. Did not address the Ninth Circuit's opinion, in other words.
Judges, they don't have a great sense of humor. The farther up you go up the ladder there.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder with the Ninth Circuit, the reason Smith writes that, of course, is that's going to be on the record for the Supreme Court to see. And I think Smith is saying specifically, this appeal is not based on what we said, SCOTUS, and you should see what we said first.
I'm really interested to see how this one fights out. I think that Apple can make arguments, as we all have, about how we shouldn't allow people to sideload apps because there are threats to security from there. It's harder when they say, okay, well, how if you're basically saying we either take 30% of your book sales, your comic book sales, your game sales, or you force people to download and buy it from a website. It's hard for them to argue that, oh my God, the security problems of including a link within the app so you go directly to the store. Like it's for the customers. We're worried about the customers. That's why we're doing it. I'm really keen to see how Apple defends that part of it. That's all.
I think that the defense will be mostly it's going to wrap around antitrust and what a monopoly means. I mean, that's where a lot of this comes up into it, which is that Apple is selling about 17% of the global market right now. And less than 50, or very close to 50% And so it's really whether you define the Apple ecosystem as a monopoly or whether you define it as part of the smartphone ecosystem. So it's really not about, I think that what Apple's going to argue is it's not really about whether they should or should not do that. If they are not defined as a monopoly, they cannot be forced to open up their store. So the whole argument is that's what they're going to, I think they're going to argue is that they're not a monopoly because they don't have a controlling interest of the market. And so I think that that's going to be that's what Apple's going to push on. And we'll see and it'll tell us a lot. I mean, the current Supreme Court will tell us a lot about the Supreme Court. If it gets up there and they make a decision, whichever direction they go, it can kind of give everybody a sense of where the Supreme Court stands on that process.
How much risk can you take with this court in place? I think it will. You're right. I think it will swing the needle one way or another.
Yep.
Saying that
Tim Sweeney of Epic tweeted his displeasure. That's the place to tweet it. Sadly, Apple's anti-steering rules, that's the anti-steering rules are the things that prevent it from putting a link into the Epic store to buy stuff for Fortnite, which both the District Court and the Ninth Circuit Court found to be illegal, will remain in place as the Ninth Circuit Court stayed the injunction that puts an end to the practice. Justice delayed again, says Tim Sweeney.
It'll be interesting to see if Epic wins. I mean, not by wins, but overall.
This is the only point, right, that Epic won on. Well, they lost on every other point.
But what I mean by this is that in the overall path, this will either be something that was genius by Epic because they make billions because they finally break down the great Apple. They make billions of dollars because they don't have to pay 30%, or it's going to be seen as a Greek level Epic failure. Right. Which, Greek tragedy, epic failure because the
or to put it in terms Lionel Messi would understand, a self goal.
Yeah.
It's not the word. It's own goal.
Own goal. Sorry. Okay. I'm not a soccer fan.
This is a blow to your attempts to demonstrate you are a competent broadcaster.
I'm incompetent. Numerous tweets complained. Okay, go ahead, Alex.
You've been chided for your actions.
I've been chided.
They had a really cushy relationship with Apple that they burned up, and it'll be interesting to see. Now that Apple is partnered with Unity, Apple's building a lot of other bits and pieces. Now, if the headset doesn't go anywhere, then it probably doesn't matter. But if the headset turns out to be the next platform that really is big on Apple's side, I don't think that Apple is giving Unreal or Epic any special treatment, and probably the least, it's kind of minimum effort, connection to Epic. And so that may, if they may have cut because the crazy thing is the Vision platform is exactly what Unreal is built for. And so to be kind of essentially shunted out of it is may have turned out to be a really expensive mistake.
Yep.